Welcome everybody to our Technology Training and Innovation Lab webinar presentation on introducing blockchain here at the Delray Beach Public Library. My name is Ben Kahn. I am the Instruction Innovation Librarian here at the library, and I will be your presenter today. Before I begin, I want to get a sense just of, your reasons for signing up for the class, and, if you have it, what you know so far, just to give me an idea, of who my audience is today. So if you could just type into the chat, why you signed up for the class, if you have any experience, reading or interacting with blockchain in some way, just to get a sense of who we are. And again, that's just more for my benefit. If you do have questions throughout the program, you're welcome to type those into the chat as well. I will try to answer them either during the program or immediately following the presentation. Without further ado, let me go ahead and start sharing my screen so we can get into introducing blockchain. Okay. So just a short disclaimer before we move on. The following presentation is intended for educational and informational purposes only. Nothing in the presentation should be taken as financial or investment advice. Neither the Delray Beach Public Library nor presenters endorse any of the products, financial instruments, companies, or organizations discussed in the presentation. We'll cover quite a bit, of sort of the blockchain ecosystem, if you will. So, I'm going to be talking about lots of different projects and, people working with blockchain, just to give you an overall sense of the kind of things that are going on with it. Objectives for today: I want to provide an overview of blockchain's recent historical development, define what it is, as well as other related terms to develop a vocabulary for talking about it. I'll introduce examples for how blockchain is currently being used, and we'll also discuss the most pressing challenges for further development of the technology, as well as some potential solutions. So, beginnings. As the now almost legendary story goes, in 2008, a still unidentified person or group, going by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto, released the Bitcoin Whitepaper, outlining a technology that would enable the world's first successful digital currency. That digital currency was, of course, Bitcoin. The technology that enables it is called blockchain. And the Bitcoin white paper can be found freely online. I've included a link in this presentation, and I will give you a copy of the presentation at the end as well, so that you can read the paper. It's about 9 pages long. It gets a little technical, but it's worth reading to really understand what's going on. So what is going on? What's the big deal with blockchain? The 2008 financial crisis brought to light some major problems with the world's financial system. Some of the largest banks, insurance companies, and mortgage brokerages failed outright. They had to be bailed out using billions of dollars in government funds. As a result, most of these trusted institutions began to lose the trust of the average individual. I'm sure we all remember the 2008 financial crisis. We've had other financial crises happen since then. In addition to that, the more recent hacks into Yahoo in 2013 and Equifax in 2017, which jeopardized a lot of people's personal information, further illustrate the risk of storing sensitive information in large central databases. So then the question that blockchain asks and provides an answer to is, what if there were a system where it was not necessary to establish trust through an institution? What if you could securely store data across a network of computers, making it exponentially more difficult to hack? This last one in particular, a lot of people like that analogy because it's similar. If you know anything about internet history, it's similar to how the internet developed. Originally, you had your various central intelligence agencies with important classified documents and things like that, which were all centrally located in one place. And that was, to ensure that, people could access them. And, so, part of the way the internet developed through what was originally called ARPANET was this idea that, you could connect everything via a network of computers and share that information with different organizations. So again, it's this idea of distributing information, distributing stored data, and doing it in a secure fashion. And that's, that has evolved into the modern day internet, which is again why people are really paying attention to blockchain and the changes that are happening due to it. So let's talk about now a little bit about what it is. Blockchain can be defined in terms of its features as a secure, distributed, immutable ledger. Now that's a bit of a mouthful, so let's break that down. A ledger is simply a record of transaction information. So it's something that lists transactions. Immutable means the information cannot be changed or deleted. It can only be added to. It's distributed. The information is stored on and verified by a network of computers rather than a central server. So again, that's sort of, Web 2.0 was, the advent of cloud computing, where you had, shared computing power all stored on a central server, like with Google Cloud or iCloud or any of the cloud sharing services that you use. Now with a distributed system, you have, they're now building computer applications that are run on a group of computers rather than one central server. And those computers can be spread out all over the world. So the computers in that network are called nodes, and they protect the bits or information on the ledger system. Blockchain is secure. The sensitive data on the blockchain is secured using cryptographic hash functions, which are mathematically irreversible. So that makes it very hard to get at the original data input into the blockchain by any kind of hacking means. Plus, you have the fact that it's distributed, which it's one thing to hack into one computer, one central server. It's another thing to try to hack an entire network. You would have to gain access to all the computers at the same time in order to hack the system. So it's a very secure system, and that's part of the beauty of it, and why it's become an important milestone in computing. Sort of early milestones regarding the development of blockchain and the first couple of blockchains anyway. Even before Satoshi Nakamoto published the Bitcoin Whitepaper in 2008, you had a research paper by Stuart Haber and W. Scott Stornetta, in which they were doing work on digital time stamping, which laid the foundation for what would later become blockchain. Blockchain is based on this idea that you have these timestamps for transactions that occur, and they can't be changed. So Haber and Stornetta kind of came up with the methodology for how to make that happen. And that influenced Satoshi Nakamoto, who put together that along with some other research that had been done to form Bitcoin, the world's first digital currency. On May 22nd, 2010, 2 Papa John's pizzas were purchased with 10,000 Bitcoin, marking the first official transaction using cryptocurrency. And on February 9th, 2011, Bitcoin attained the value equivalent to $1 US for the first time. If you've been watching the news, the value has gone up quite a bit since then. There was, the Bitcoin bubble and crash of 2017, where it skyrocketed up to $20,000, and then leveled off at around 3,000–4,000 for a little while before picking up again, and now it's up to more than double that. So I think it's around 45,000 per Bitcoin right now. July 30th, 2015, another player enters. A team led by 21-year-old Vitalik Buterin releases Ethereum, a development platform for creating decentralized computer applications using blockchain technologies. So we have a new application for blockchain, not just a payment system, which, the Bitcoin payment system itself was revolutionary, but then Ethereum really takes it to a whole new level. And so we'll discuss them a little bit next. So Ethereum, sometimes described as the silver to Bitcoin's gold. It's the second largest blockchain in use currently. Well, key differences between it and Bitcoin. While Bitcoin's supply is limited to a fixed supply of 21 million, making it intentionally scarce, the supply of Ether, Ethereum's currency, is unlimited. Bitcoin, was very intentionally created to be this sort of digital gold. It was meant so that there would only be a limited amount. The mining operations were built into it from the very beginning. And that's part of what determines its value is the scarcity. It's a relationship between the demand for it, so the amount of people wanting to buy Bitcoin, against the amount available, so the supply of it. With Ethereum, you have something that aims to be more than just a digital currency. By providing a platform for the creation of decentralized applications, or DApps, the Ethereum blockchain enables an entire ecosystem of new software solutions built on the idea of smart contracts. So I'm going to discuss that in just a minute. Make sure I've got the chat up here to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, good. Just have responses. So some definitions with Ethereum. We have this notion of decentralized applications, or DApps. So you do pronounce the D. It's similar to the word email. The D is for decentralized, and app is for application. So that's a computer program run on a network of computers rather than on a central server. You have the idea of smart contracts, and this is something that started with Ethereum. You have these computer code capable of executing secure legal transactions automatically once certain conditions are met. So blockchain has basically been determined as so secure, as to be able to establish truth digitally. And so transactions that can be verified on a blockchain are able to be legally binding. Solidity, I just wanted to mention, is the programming language used to write Ethereum smart contracts. So if anybody's interested in becoming a blockchain programmer, you might want to look into learning Solidity. And finally, Ether is the cryptocurrency used to pay for transaction fees and computation on the Ethereum blockchain. So Ether, is not necessarily, used to buy pizza, as with Bitcoin, but it is used to do calculations and to develop apps on Ethereum. And again, there's a contrast between Ethereum, which is the blockchain underneath, and the cryptocurrency Ether, which is used to help run or administer the blockchain. Now that I've introduced you, the two main, I should say the two largest blockchains in existence right now, and they're probably the ones that get the most attention and are most in the news. There are a lot of other ones out there. We'll talk in a minute about initial coin offerings and just how many new blockchain projects are being created. But I want to give you some examples of blockchain use cases. So these can be examples of DApps that have been created, different projects that people have worked on, and just give you a sense of what this can be used for. Because I think that's one of the things people get hung up with and confused with on blockchain is just, okay, yeah, it's a really interesting technology, and you've created these cryptocurrencies for digital payments electronically. But what else is there? So first one I'm going to mention is a DApp called Brave. This is actually a new type of web browser. Tired of Google's ad service tracking your every move and showing you advertisements everywhere you go? Think you should be paid for the time you spend looking at advertisements? Now there's a browser for that. Brave is a browser that blocks all cookies and other trackers and eliminates advertisements on websites you visit. Now, there's an interesting twist to this, because Brave is, basically trying to improve Google and make it better. Google's gotten some criticism lately for being too invasive about people's data and, using it to track us and send ads to us. And we don't get paid for that. So Brave says, if you allow it to send you small nondescript advertisements, it will pay you a cryptocurrency called the basic attention token. And Brave ads look like this little box down here. They show up in the bottom right-hand corner. And I mean, the payments are micropayments. They are small. They take a while to build up. I've been using Brave for probably over 6 months now, and I think from that I've got the equivalent of $18. I mean, it's nothing you could live off of, but it's nice to be paid for your attention. So I mentioned a little bit earlier ICOs. As digital currencies proved successful in acquiring real value and public blockchain projects showed potential as real investments, many such projects began releasing their own cryptocurrency tokens, often in the form of an initial coin offering. Some of these are just to basically raise money for the project. They're analogous to the initial public offerings that are offered by companies seeking to raise money by being publicly traded on the stock market. There have been thousands of ICOs released between 2017 and 2021. A few succeed, a lot of them fail, and some of them have been downright fraudulent. The SEC has cracked down on a couple cases where people were, creating ICOs, just to fill their own pocketbooks, basically. And some of them involve money laundering schemes and things like that. But you can read a bit more about that on the SEC's website. I've included a link in the presentation. Crypto exchanges. Crypto exchanges facilitate the buying and selling of cryptocurrencies, much in the way brokerages facilitate the buying and selling of stocks and other investments. Some exchanges operate as traditional centralized databases, although such exchanges would be susceptible to attacks by hackers. This was the case with Mt. Gox, the first major Bitcoin exchange, which went bankrupt in 2014 after 850,000 Bitcoins, worth over $460 million at the time, were stolen right up from under its nose. Now, several decentralized exchanges are becoming popular, and these would be less susceptible to hacking because they are run on the blockchain and have those extra security features. They're distributed over a large network, and they have the hash functions and all that, protecting the data that's input into them. But they have another set of risks, associated with them. So I'm going to try to compare the two, just to give you an idea. So crypto exchange examples, centralized ones include Coinbase's, probably the most popular one in the news all the time. It's now been released as a publicly traded company as well. You also have Gemini, which was set up by the Winklevoss twins, who were some of the original creators of Facebook. And then Kraken is another popular centralized exchange. The advantages of the centralized exchanges, they tend to be more user-friendly, a little more reliable, because they are, centrally built. So, there's not as much, not much of a transaction lag. And we'll talk about the scalability of blockchain later. But, user-friendly, reliable. However, they do have hacking risks to them, as with the exchange I mentioned, Mt. Gox earlier. There are also more kind of traditional fee structures associated with them, which would be similar to banking, and sometimes those fees are even higher. I know Kraken's fees are quite a bit larger than what Coinbase charges, and it depends on how much you're trading as well. Now, on the other side of the coin, you have your decentralized exchanges. And these so far have been less used than the centralized exchanges. People are still more comfortable with centralized exchanges than they are with decentralized. And there's a reason for that. There's a much steeper learning curve to decentralized exchanges. There are typically no fiat exchanges. So fiat is the currencies issued by governments, so U.S. dollar or the euro, those are fiat currencies. And since the decentralized exchanges don't generally support those transactions. If you don't have any cryptocurrency to begin with, you can't really get started. So that's one thing you could do is start off in the centralized exchange and then move your cryptocurrency into the decentralized exchange, and then you can get the advantages of a decentralized network that's a lot more difficult to hack. It's more resistant to market manipulation. But there's also things you have to be aware of. Anytime you're dealing with a decentralized application run on a blockchain, that's storing your sensitive information, generally you'll be given what's called a private key, which is sort of like a special password or string of words that is your way to access your account. And the sensitive information on your account. No one else has access to that. There's no one on the other end who can look it up for you if you lose that private key. Bitcoin, if you are a member of the actual Bitcoin network, meaning you mine some Bitcoin and have direct access to the blockchain that way, there you also have a private key to use and spend your Bitcoins. I know someone personally who had the unfortunate case where he mined a half of a Bitcoin back, in the early days of Bitcoin mining when it could be done with a personal computer, and then he lost the private key. So now he has half a Bitcoin worth, $25,000 that he has no access to. There's no way to access it with a decentralized system like that. All right, moving on, and this will kind of round out the decentralized finance aspect of blockchain. But decentralized finance is still one of the most pervasive applications of blockchain technology, particularly with all the new cryptocurrencies being developed and traded fluidly with government-issued fiat currencies, as well as other cryptocurrencies. So it's only a matter of time before people decided they wanted to collect interest on their cryptocurrency as well. Compound is a protocol built on Ethereum that allows people to loan cryptocurrency to one another and receive it back with interest. They do so through an app also called Compound. NFTs. NFTs are sort of a new fad with the blockchain and crypto community. It's one of my favorite concepts personally. NFT stands for non-fungible token. So we're going to talk about fungibility and what that is real quick, and the idea of sort of digital provenance enabled by blockchain. Cryptocurrency units are fungible, meaning that each one has the property that can be exchanged for another one that is essentially the same. A Bitcoin is a Bitcoin, just as a dollar is a dollar. Other fungible items might include barrels of crude oil, a bushel of red delicious apples. Most commodities are fungible items. Hershey's milk chocolate bars might be another one. As long as they're the same, you can exchange one for the other and nobody would know the difference. Most people wouldn't care if you said, hey, change me that Hershey bar for this Hershey bar. On the other hand, you have things like works of art, music, and literature, which could be considered an example of things that might be considered non-fungible. Real estate is another one that is generally considered non-fungible. Diamonds are considered non-fungible because there are certain properties that change the quality and therefore the value of that item. So the uniqueness, cultural significance, historical importance, and provenance, a complete ownership record, these all affect the differences in value for such items. For digital items, the ease of copying via the internet has historically made it nearly impossible to establish and track ownership. This has been a huge hindrance for the recording industry, for anybody trying to make a living off of creating digital art. That it wasn't possible to record ownership of a digital item before blockchain. So this has started to change now with blockchain enabling a new market for digital non-fungible tokens. Now, there's a lot of different marketplaces and that you can go to buy these non-fungible tokens. One particular DApp example is OpenSea. OpenSea is a DApp running on the Ethereum blockchain and provides a platform to buy and sell NFTs. Categories on their site include art, music, domain names, and virtual worlds. A complete record of ownership is stored and maintained on the blockchain. And they do have a way of reducing the way people copy things. Things that are listed this way and recorded on the blockchain, as an NFT. Often you can't just right-click and say, I want to copy and paste this somewhere. However, it's not really impossible. I mean, you can still use the print screen on your computer, obviously. You can also use, the Microsoft snipping tool to take a copy of it. So you might ask, okay, so what's the point? Well, it's interesting because it's really the record of ownership that changes everything, because those copies that you make won't have that record of ownership attached to them. Only the original NFT will. Which, it's like saying, I can go to a museum and take a picture of the Mona Lisa, but that doesn't make a legitimate copy of the Mona Lisa. It's not like saying I own the Mona Lisa now. So, digital provenance is, sort of an interesting and revolutionary topic. It's interesting just to take a look at the things that are offered on OpenSea too. CryptoKitties is an Ethereum-based game for breeding digital cats. Game assets such as the kitties are popular NFTs. So you can buy these cats and then breed them using the Ethereum-based game. Artist Mike Winkelmann, otherwise known as Beeple, has been in the news, become somewhat famous. He's known for creating a new digital artwork every day. He's created a collection called his Everydays, and he's become famous because the first 5,000 of these sold as a digital collage at Christie's. A traditional auction house is now involved in selling digital art, and it sold for $69 million. So it's become a serious business for artists, especially if they're digitally inclined. I should also mention it's not terribly difficult to create an NFT either. I actually got onto OpenSea the other day, created an account. You do have to link some kind of cryptocurrency wallet, typically an Ethereum wallet. But once you've got that done, it's basically just uploading a file and then submitting a form to create the NFT. So it's fairly simple. Next topic is the idea of digital identities. This has been a long-standing issue with the internet. Is how do you validate people? How do you authenticate people? And it's becoming harder and harder by traditional means. I'm sure we've all experienced the two-factor authentication, the need for hundreds of passwords to keep track of. They'll send a message to your phone that asks you to tap something on your phone, and then if it doesn't go through, then you have to do it all over again. So wouldn't it be great if we had a way to prove our identity online, without having to go through all these hoops? Along with digital provenance, digital identification is another innovative application of blockchain technology. Blockchain allows for both the storage of secure, encrypted, inaccessible data and the open, freely accessible publication of transactions that involve that data. So what this means is the blockchain can securely store records such as driver's license, passports, and birth certificates. Then, without granting direct access to those records to anyone ever, it is able to certify that you are who you say you are. So that's kind of a big deal. And there's a DApp out there. I mean, this hasn't really caught on yet, but there are people experimenting with it. One such project is called Atala Prism. It's a DApp run on the Cardano blockchain. It's free and intended to demonstrate what can be achieved by using blockchain to give individuals sovereign control over their digital identities and credentials. A pilot program for ItaliPrism was formed in partnership with the Republic of Georgia to facilitate access to degree credentials for university students entering the workplace. So the use of the blockchain eliminated the need for background checks and allowed the graduates to share their achievements with employers immediately via their smartphones. So this was actually tested out, in real life as well. But ItaliPrism, you can download it from the Google Play Store or the App Store and go through their entire demo without having to add any of your actual information. But it gives a good sense of what this could be used for, and it's kind of neat. So I want to talk a little bit about private blockchains. Not all blockchains are open to everyone. I mean, the ones that we've talked about so far, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano as well, are public blockchains. So anyone can get involved with them, and buy the cryptocurrency associated with them, or create a D-app. As long as you're willing to pay the gas fees and do everything you need to participate in the network. But it's open to everyone. Not all blockchains are that way anymore. As more use cases are developed and the value of the technology is better understood, established businesses and organizations are finding ways to benefit from having their own private permission blockchains. It also, keeps them from going under, now that, we don't need as many third parties, which, is sort of the initial revolutionary and somewhat hyped aspect of blockchain. But there are some neat things being done by traditional companies who've gotten on the blockchain bus and are using it to either validate supply chains. IBM's Food Trust uses blockchain to track the world's food supply and ensure safer distribution and sustainability. It's also partnered with Maersk in a separate project that kind of just focuses on global supply chains in general. De Beers is using blockchain to manage its supply chain of diamonds to prevent the sale of blood diamonds sourced from conflict zones. Spotify uses a blockchain solution called Media Chain to track ownership rights from musical works. As we mentioned, keeping track of ownership on the internet has been notoriously difficult, especially, for musicians. I mean, I'm a musician myself, so, I've encountered that frustration of, how do I get my work out there, and, keep track of the rights, when there's all kinds of opportunities for doing things yourself and, publishing things digitally now. But yet, there's not a great tracking system for keeping track of ownership rights. So that's another thing that blockchain can be used for. One particular project that I wanted to show you is called Project I2I. This is a project developed by Consensus Solutions, which focuses on blockchain projects. They partnered with Union Bank to connect local rural banks in the Philippines using a cost-effective electronic payment system built on the Ethereum blockchain. As 1/3 of the Filipino population lives on less than $2 a day, and 70% have no access to a checking or savings account, this represents a major leap forward for the country. So I'm going to go ahead and just play a few minutes of this video just to give you an idea of what this project's about, because I thought it was pretty neat.
When Solutions started, our objective was to build a competent entity that could interact globally across a lot of different verticals, certainly with focuses on banking. But the I2I project is currently focused on the Philippines, a wonderful country. It's the most heterogeneous population in Asia that natively speaks English. There's 110 million people. 70% of them are without financial services. The current state of the banking infrastructure is not good enough to keep up with growth. And so Solutions people on our side have a tremendous opportunity to accelerate the growth of an ecosystem. We can help educate their teams, working with large banks or even the central bank. We can provide assistance, both technical and business and otherwise. I2I went in and tried to understand the problem of rural banking. And basically we learned that it comes down to two key issues. One, It's very difficult and expensive for provincial areas to stand up and maintain IT infrastructure. And two, much of the transaction processing is done manually. It's a very slow and arduous process. So we thought, well, why not extend an open Ethereum network that's modular that all of these rural banks can connect to? They can use Ethereum to ensure transactions have a high degree of integrity. And so we make the whole process much more efficient and less prone to errors. Consequently.
Okay. So again, just to give you another, an example of, how blockchain is being used to, develop for good in third world countries and other places as well. Now I want to talk next a little bit about some of the challenges that are facing blockchain, as far as both adoption and, the continuation of the technology as it grows. One of the initial, obvious criticisms is the enabling of illegal activities. And this is mostly, an issue with cryptocurrency in particular, and especially Bitcoin. The perceived anonymity of Bitcoin as a kind of digital cash has given it a reputation for fueling underground and often illegal activities. One of its early uses was to enable transactions on Silk Road, an online marketplace specializing in the sale of illegal substances, which was shut down by the FBI and Europol in 2014. While intelligence organizations have since found ways to track criminals using cryptocurrencies for illegal purposes, the fact that there are no banks or other central authorities to regulate them means that they may continue to be a vehicle for nefarious purposes. To curb some of this, governments are working to pass new laws concerning crypto assets, but will require insight from experts familiar with blockchain technology. In particular, there was a big to-do recently with the new infrastructure bill put out by the Biden administration, which included a passage, regarding crypto exchanges and other vehicles used to sort of administer cryptocurrency transactions. And it came down to requiring them to, produce sort of know your customer data, as well as, information for tax purposes, basically, which in a decentralized system, again, there's no central authority. So how do you do that? It had the entire crypto community kind of up in arms because it wasn't really practical. And, if something like that were to be passed, then, it could spell disaster for a lot of the projects going on. So, there has to be some give and take as far as, the understanding on the part of lawmakers, as well as, the desire to curb illegal activities on decentralized open networks. Next issue, and this is a big one as well, blockchain and the environment. One major criticism of blockchain and Bitcoin in particular has been the massive increase in electricity used to power computers for cryptocurrency mining operations. This stems from a process called proof of work, whereby new blockchain entries are created and verified by having computers solve complex puzzles using brute force techniques. So it's basically a contest of the biggest computer wins, and then gets the mined Bitcoin, which can be a lucrative operation. And so that's why many companies, many of them were based in China until very recently. They developed these huge warehouses of giant servers. Their sole purpose was to solve these puzzles as quickly as possible to beat out all the other computers competing for new Bitcoins. China has since clamped down on this because of the environmental impact of it and the fact that they tend to rely on coal, more than other sources of energy. This is an argument that goes back and forth. And, those in support of Bitcoin will say, well, it's not really affecting the environment that much because it's making more use of environmentally sustainable newer energy sources, basically, sustainable energy sources. Others will say, it's still a lot of energy, and I mean, Elon Musk has famously been quoted as no longer accepting Bitcoin because of its environmental consequences, and so there's options for getting away from proof of work, which, like I said, is sort of the main culprit here. Verification of the blockchain, of the entries on the blockchain, is really important because you have to make sure that the information is accurate and ready to be added to the blockchain, because you can't change it later. One such alternative is called proof of stake, and Ethereum recently did a major change to its blockchain in order to adopt this process, because it has considerably less of a negative effect on the environment. With proof of stake, instead of it being a contest of computing power, it's more just a question of who has the most cryptocurrency staked in the project. So then people are chosen at random to validate the blockchain. It's a different process, which is a lot more environmentally friendly. Blockchain scalability, I've mentioned a little bit so far. Again, because blockchain entries have to be verified by the entire network. Remember, blockchains, distributed out, on lots of different computers, however many that want to join in the case of a public network, and they have to be verified. So because you have to communicate with so many different devices, more time is required to compute blockchain transactions, particularly as doing so becomes more popular and more transactions are made simultaneously. So because the blockchain transactions take more time, as it becomes more popular and more people use it, you have more transactions going at the same time, which can make things very slow. This presents an issue for long-term scalability, particularly for large public blockchains like Bitcoin and Ethereum. One potential solution that's been proposed for this is to allow the transactions to proceed off-chain while then being enforced by smart contracts, as with the Lightning Network. You can read more about the Lightning Network on their website, but they're, why not? I'll take you there just for a moment just to tell you what they're about. But the idea is to enable instant payments, lightning fast blockchain payments without worrying about block confirmation times, where the security is enforced by smart contracts. So this solves the scalability issue, as it's capable of millions to billions of transactions per second on the network. So it's lower cost, which is good, especially in Ethereum, and in Ethereum, as some of the costs for using the Ethereum blockchain can get out of hand too. They refer to it as their gas prices, and it's another thing that the most recent changes to Ethereum is trying to solve. Finally, talking a little bit about vulnerabilities and hard forks. While entries in the blockchain are secured by hash functions, which scramble the data and are irreversible, making traditional data hacking kind of a moot point, there are still ways to potentially game the system. This is not a surprise. This was built into the original Bitcoin whitepaper. One of them is the 51% attack. Since blockchain entries are verified by consensus mechanisms, usually requiring that a majority of nodes on the network agree, one potential risk is that entries could potentially be reversed or duplicated if a single source were to control 51% of the nodes. Now, that kind of defeats the whole idea behind blockchain. The assumption is that there are more good actors on the blockchain than there are bad actors. If there are more bad actors and they're all working together, which again, could seem unlikely, then you could potentially hack the blockchain in a way. And it's not the same as a traditional hack either. Really, all it allows for is for whoever owns the 51% to go in and make duplicate entries, which is, you know, a problem in a traditional banking sense. You know, that was part of what, you know, the Bitcoin white paper was supposed to solve, was the avoidance of duplicate entries. So, you know, that could then corrupt the integrity of the blockchain, which, you know, could spell problems. But, you know, it seems a fairly far off risk, and, you know, the Bitcoin white paper does a pretty good job of explaining why it would not be in anyone's best interest to do so. There's, you know, not much of an incentive to do so unless, you know, you were just insanely powerful and have a desire to take down the blockchain. But smart contracts, exchanges, and dApps running on top of the blockchain are also still subject to loopholes, poor coding practices, and potential exploitation. So while the blockchain, you know, it's really more secure than a bank, and, you know, by not allowing for that traditional hacking of, you know, a centralized database. But there are things running on top of it that, you know, still have that risk. You know, part of it is, you know, the smart contracts are code, and, well, code is written by humans, and humans make mistakes. So it is rare that attacks cause so much damage to warrant changes to the blockchain. But this has happened, and when they do, it results in what's called a hard fork. The blockchain splits into two at the point where things kind of went wrong. This enables you to kind of invalidate transactions up to a certain point and then allow the blockchain to proceed in another direction. So that, you know, actually then you have two of the same blockchain on the network, but one is running in a new direction after the hard fork. Ethereum has now undergone two hard forks. One was due to a loophole in the early decentralized application. It was their DAO, the DAO, which again, you know, kind of proved the decentralized applications were possible. However, it also showed some flaws, and there was quite a bit of money. I think maybe 55 million was stolen out of the Ethereum blockchain because of this error. And so, you know, Ethereum made the decision to go with a hard fork, which itself is, you know, was kind of a major controversy at the time, because the blockchain is supposed to be immutable. You're not supposed to be able to change it. So, you know, what are you doing? You know, creating a new copy of it and, you know, taking it in a different direction. So there's actually, you know, an Ethereum Classic, which is the original blockchain before the hard fork, and then you have the current Ethereum, and now Ethereum 2.0, which is their second hard fork. And, you know, this one was not due to any attack or hacking activities. However, there were, you know, issues discovered in the protocols within Ethereum, which made it less scalable. You know, it's, you know, Ethereum is trying to deal with some of these issues inherent in blockchain. So, you know, one of those is adopting proof of stake. You know, it was previously on the proof of work consensus mechanism, just like Bitcoin is, but because of the environmental issues, they have decided to go ahead and change the blockchain to now operate on proof of stake, which is great for the environment. They also wanted to deal with scalability issues. So, I mean, there's a lot that went into this second fork, and it's called the London hard fork for Ethereum 2.0 is now what it's being called. But you can read about that as well on some of the additional resources that I've added at the end of the presentation. To kind of summarize everything, blockchain is a new technology for establishing trust. Digitally and without the need for third parties, for a third party to intermediate. That's not to say that it can't be used by third parties to, you know, create trust in other ways. It does so by storing secure and accessible data on a distributed network while creating an accessible and immutable record of transactions about such data. So the data, anything that you would not want everybody to see is completely hidden, but then you have transactions about that data which are able to confirm the data underneath, which establish that trust. Applications of blockchain include cryptocurrencies, decentralized finance, decentralized computer applications, digital provenance, self-sovereign digital identities, improvements to supply chains, and more. Blockchain's impact is still being realized, and as with any new technology, there are challenges that need to be addressed. However, everyone can benefit from learning more about blockchain and engaging in conversations about how it might affect our future. I've included a list of different links and articles that I've read for putting together the information in this presentation. Also, if anyone is interested in diving deeper into blockchain, I highly recommend our Gale courses offered through one of the library's databases. Has a 6-week instructor-led course on blockchain fundamentals. So you can sign up for that through the library's website, delraylibrary.org/resources. Let me go ahead and give you all a copy of the presentation so you can go over these yourself. Stop share. There it is. And that should be populating in the chat for you to download and check out. Let's see, if anybody's interested in a more or less comprehensive history of well, Bitcoin at least, I do recommend the book Digital Gold by Nathaniel Popper. It's a very good introduction to the historical aspect of it and goes into a little more depth, talks a little bit more about how the blockchain works. And yeah, it's a good story as well. So that's available. We have a copy in the library, which I believe is checked out, but however, it's also available on Hoopla. If anybody uses Hoopla as both an audiobook and an ebook. In the last couple of minutes that we have, does anybody have any questions for me? Or yes, Susan. Go ahead, unmute.
When you mention dedicated computers, you mean computers that are dedicated in various locations specifically to this kind of a process. You don't mean a string of 1 billion computers that are attached.
Right. That one, we were discussing Bitcoin mining and that they're dedicated to the mining operations. Yes, those are typically, supercomputers housed in a giant warehouse, and often they are, servers connected together in a chain.
But it's a dedicated chain.
Yes, yeah.
It's not an assumed chain.
Right, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. See. All right, if there's no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for attending today's presentation on introducing blockchain, presented by the Delray Beach Public Library and our Technology Training and Innovation Lab.